Hello traders, welcome back to my channel. I know I haven't been posting as consistently. That was because I had family over, and also I know the market hasn't been very great. It's been very choppy, it's been very bearish, and it hasn't been very amazing and a bit difficult, but that shouldn't stop you from learning. So yeah, I'm gonna catch you in a bit. I'm just gonna quickly jump to my kitchen countertop and get my setup going so I can teach you support and resistance. So before I forget, look, let me see if I can quickly switch the camera. Look how healthy my plants are looking. Ah, so beautiful, guys. I know you probably don't even care about that. Right now I'm waffling, so let me catch you in a bit. So today I'm going to give you another support and resistance lesson, as that is my strategy. And I know we've spoken about my strategy before, but I know as a beginner, support and resistance can be a bit difficult. But trust me, once you understand the gist of it and you keep practicing support and resistance, you will get there. Trust me. In the beginning, you learn about support resistance and then you apply it to your trading. Let's say you open a demo account and you're applying, you're like, oh, where is support resistance? I just learned it, but I just don't understand. Don't worry, I've got you. You just have to keep practicing. Let me put my glasses on quickly, guys, because I can't really see. So if you stay to the end of this video, you will learn how to draw support and resistance, when to enter and how to exit, and the mistakes that beginners do that wipes out their account when they use support and resistance. So yeah, let's get straight into it. What exactly is support and resistance? So it's very easy, very simple, and don't complicate it. What is buy and resistance is sell. When you think of resistance, you think of sell. And you can think of it this way: price usually gets pushed down. So essentially, resistance is the ceiling where the price keeps on rejecting. And then with support equals buy, the price tries to bounce up. So essentially, support is the floor where price keeps bouncing up. Very simple. Support is the floor where price keeps bouncing up, and resistance is the ceiling where price keeps rejecting. Very simple. That's it. No overthinking. Floor and ceiling. So when you think of support, remember it always has to be below the price. With resistance, it always has to be above the price. So let's say price is, let's say 3. Let's say price is 3. Maybe we can draw it out. Okay. Let's say the current price is 3. Our support will always be below the price. So let's say support is 2. And resistance, let's say it resisted over here, okay? Like up here. Let's say that is 5. Resistance always has to be above the price. So let's say this is number 5. And support always has to be below, which is number 2. Hopefully that made sense. I will explain it even further later on. So, like we mentioned, resistance is the ceiling. Is trying to push everything down, and support is the floor, is trying to push the price up. Okay, you can think of it like a bouncy spring. So now you know the meaning of support and resistance. Let's practice the meaning before we actually figure out how to find support and resistance. Where is support and resistance? Looking at the overall picture in this image, I'm going to give you 3 seconds. 1, 2, 3. Looking at the overall image, we can dictate that this is resistance, as it's the ceiling, is trying to push the price down, as remember it is above the current price. And this over here is support, as it is the floor. And remember, I asked for the overall picture. I didn't specify if we're swing trading or scalping. So of course you must be thinking, oh, I thought this was resistance, I thought this was support. Yes, but we're just looking at the overall picture. For instance, you can easily say this over here is support if we were to scalp, or this over here is this level is support, right? You can also say, oh, this level could also be resistance. Yes, that is correct. But for now, I just asked for an overall picture. Notice how I said overall and not a specific trade. If you got this correct, well done. Let's move on. Okay. So now we know what support is and how you guys can identify it on a bigger time frame. So before you actually go and draw your support and resistance, and figure out how to actually draw it, you need to know the trends of the market. So there are 3 trends in the market. Number 1, it's an uptrend. Usually when there is an uptrend, you want to buy, as buy equates to support. When there is a downtrend, you want to sell, as sell equates to resistance. And the third market structure is range, and that's where both the support and resistance works, as it is within a range. I'm not going to get into detail with this, as I'm probably going to do a separate video on the market structure. How to actually find support and resistance. Okay, we're going to get into the interesting part. So number 1, you need to identify the trend. Like we mentioned earlier, there's 3 types of market structure: uptrend, downtrend, and range. Okay, Once you identify that, you want to find support and resistance, and in order to find that, you need to find 2 to 3 bounces within the graph, and that's how you identify support and resistance. Don't worry, if you're a bit confused, I will show you. And then once you've identified the 2 to 3 bounces, you're going to have to mark your zones or lines or whatever you may call it. And since we are scalpers, we want to be focusing on the recent level. So essentially, when I mention marks or zones, as you can either use lines or rectangles, and they are essentially called zones. I used to prefer drawing lines, but now I find it a bit easier to draw a rectangle, because when there is a line, the price never actually goes to that exact line, and you have to mentally prepare for that. So that is why I drew a rectangle, as visually it just makes a bit more sense. So this is something I want you to take away, if it's anything from this video. Price reacts in areas and not exact prices. Also, when you draw the rectangle and you mark your zones, it protects you from fake outs, wicks, and stop hunts. So I'm going to show you an example of an uptrend. So looking at this graph, what is the trend? I'm going to give you 3 seconds to answer that. Fairly simple. If you said this is an uptrend, well done. That is correct. And for those of you who couldn't figure it out, I will show you how you can figure it out. So there are a few types of ways to figure it out. Number one is visually. So over here, you can call this a higher low. When it's an uptrend, it's called a higher low. So this is a higher low, and this is a higher low. This is a higher low. The reasons why it's called a higher low, as it's higher than the other low. Like, it's higher. It went higher, and it has a little curve, right? So that's how we know it's a higher low. So this is a higher low over here. Higher low. Oh, okay. Oh, look, another one higher low. You can you can also say this is a higher low. They're both kind of the same. Oh, look, it went higher again. This is another higher low. Oh, whoop. Currently, this is the other higher low. So this is how you figure out if it is an uptrend. Another way you can figure it out is by using a moving average or a trend line. I don't have a moving average, but let's say it's a trend line. You literally get your tool and do it like this. There we go. And that's how you figure out whether it is in an uptrend. There we go. And since this is an uptrend, what are we trying to look for? We are trying to look for support, as support equates to buy, and it is an uptrend, which means that there is buying pressure. Therefore, we will buy. And then we also draw resistance, as that will be our take profit. So we want to take profit before it hits our resistance. So now we figured out what is a trend. We need to find our support and resistance by looking for 2 to 3 bounces. And remember, since we're scalping, we want the most recent price. So this is the recent price. Now, knowing this knowledge that this is the recent price, where would you draw your most recent support and resistance level? I'm going to give you 3 seconds. Okay, so essentially, like I mentioned, we need to draw support and resistance, and we have to focus on our recent levels as we are scalpers. So I drew a resistant line over here and a resistant line over here, as resistance is always above the price. This is the second oldest resistant level, and this is the newest resistant level just over here. So if I want to play it safe, I would just exit right over here, just below it, to stay on the safer side. Or if you're more risk averse, you would wait for price to resist over here, but there's no guarantee. So it's best to stay on the safer side, especially as a beginner. So that would be our take profit. And now with support, as essentially support is the most important part right now, as the support will dictate when we would enter. So I drew a support in a rectangular form. Like I mentioned, you can either draw lines or rectangular forms. But the reason why I drew this rectangular form is because we can say that this is support, and this whole area is essentially our support level. You can also say this part is our support level. You can essentially extend it even more, but I just prefer it to just draw it like this. And you can tell, look, it touched, bounced, touched, bounced, touched, bounced, it went up again, touched, bounced, bounced, went up, then touched again. Therefore, it is our area of support, as it bounced 1, 2, 3. You can say roughly 4 times. Same with our resistance level, 1, 2, 3. It touched it roughly 3 times. Therefore, it confirms that that is our support level as well as our resistance level. Fairly simple. And then you can also draw your rectangle just onto the wick, like I did over here. Wick, wick. So that also shows that our support level is correct. You could also, for example's sake, you could also say, oh, this is also our support level over here. Yes, because look, touched once, twice, and 3 times. Now, pretend this isn't our recent, let's pretend this isn't the price, right? And we're looking over here. This would have been our resistance level, but it became our support level as price went above it, and it broke out, and that essentially became our new support level. So this line would be our second support level if it does decide to carry on down, and then it could decide just to go up. Or worst case scenario, it could pull back and just keep going down, which is why you should always have a confirmation before you enter your trades. It's fairly simple. That's the one bounce, a little curve, a mini curve here, second over here. Very simple. Try look for mini curves. Yeah, that's like one of the simple ways that I learned. Just look for mini curves or just look for 2 to 3 bounces. That is the simplest way I can simplify it. So now we drew our support and resistance line. The next thing you would want to do, let me just rub that out. The next thing you would want to do is wait for a confirmation candle, which we will discuss right now on our entry slide. Oh, before we get into the entry, we are finding support as we want to buy as it is an uptrend, and the resistance will be our take profit level. Like I mentioned earlier, when you're buying, your resistance will be your take profit area. So for entry, just because you found support and resistance doesn't mean you should enter. That is one way to disaster and how you're going to wipe your account. So number one, to figure out when to enter is you need to learn candlesticks, okay? Let's say you need to look for rejection candles such as a hammer or engulfing. Those will be your second to third confluences when you find your support and resistance. So let's say you don't use moving averages or a trend lines as part of your confluence. This will be your second confluence when drawing support and resistance, as you shouldn't just use support and resistance blindly. And also, a rejection candle can also look like a strong rejection wick. So the second way is trend direction, as we mentioned, looking at where the trend is going and looking at price action as well as learning chart patterns, such as a V-shaped pattern. I've done a separate video on that, so go check it out. And remember, a touch is not a signal, okay? You need a signal you need a signal / confirmation candle that is the right time to trade. If you just enter a support and be like, oh, it's an uptrend, I'm gonna buy. And worst case scenario, you get stopped out, or it goes not in the direction that it's not intended to do. You're thinking, oh, but I thought. There's no, oh, I thought. The market doesn't work for you. It's not your friend. It's your enemy. Okay? So remember, again, we trade reactions, not touches. So here's an example. This is the same example as earlier, but let's say there was a hammer right over here. Your first instinct, oh, I'm going to quickly buy. Yes, but just wait for another green candle for your confirmation, just to stay on the safer side. So yeah, as I was mentioning, when you use support and resistance, you need a confirmation in this support area zone. And of course, when it's resistance, it's just the opposite. You're looking for confirmation in resistance, which is the opposite of bullish engulfing, is bearish engulfing, etc. It doesn't have to be bullish or bearish engulfing. It can be different candlestick patterns that you guys need to learn. Now you guys have figured out when to enter. You're probably thinking, oh, okay, when should I exit? So to figure out how to exit, there are 2 ways for you to exit. You exit when you're wrong, so that's when your stop loss comes in. So here are a few tips that I will give to when to exit. Number 1, when you buy, put your stop loss just below support. When you sell, put your stop loss above resistance. And you shouldn't do it too close or too far, because if you put your support or resistance level very close, you can easily get stomped out, only to find out that it's going in the direction you thought it would go. So don't set it too close, as fake breakouts can knock you out early. The second way you should exit is when you want to take your profit, and you want to take it just before the next zone. Here's my 3 tips. So when you're buying, you want to sell just before resistance, since price might reverse over there. When you want to sell, you want to buy just before support. Because if you wait, for instance, for it to touch your resistant level, let's say you're buying and you're waiting to take profit just at your resistant level, it could reverse and go down. And then you're going to be like, oh, I wish I took my profit. I could have made more. Or worse, you can make an L and it can just quickly go down very quickly, as the market is very volatile. Tip number 3, you want to lock in gains. Don't be greedy. Instead of waiting the price to hit resistance and possibly pull back. So what you could do is set a limit order, which is usually what I do. Usually I will just take 10 points. Usually I'll take 10 to 20 points, up to you and your risk to reward ratio. So you need to calculate your risk to reward ratio when you trade. I would say stick to 10 points, as it's more safer. And if you feel like you're very greedy and you don't take profits when you should, just put a limit order for now until you work on it. So I'm going to quickly show you a live example how we're going to trade. I don't think I'm actually going to trade because it's still 2 p.m. Dubai time and the market hasn't opened, therefore it is pre-market. So once I show you a live example, I'm going to give you common beginner mistakes, and yeah, the video will be wrapped up. So let's show you a real life example. So number one, let's say I'm about to trade, okay? I want to be looking at the daily time frame to see whether it's an uptrend. If you're wondering what these squiggly lines are, that is my moving average. Now, we're not going to be talking about moving average. You can learn that in your own time, or I'll probably do a separate video on that. Okay, looking at the daily time frame, what do you think the market direction is? I'm going to give you a couple of seconds. If you said this is an uptrend, you are correct. And for those who still struggling, remember how I mentioned visually without just looking at the moving average, you can be like, oh, look, this over here is a higher low. Oh, another higher low over here. Oops, it's going higher again. Look, it keeps going higher. Little bounces. Higher low, another bounce. Higher low. Oh, another bounce. Yeah, we got a higher low over here, but pulling back. And this over here. And that's, oh look, and there's also a higher low here and a higher low there. You see, and that's how you guys can visually figure out whether it's an uptrend. Okay, now let's remove all of this. So now we figure that it's an uptrend, therefore we know we are going to buy. Okay, so now since we've identified the trend, we want to find 2 to 3 bounces, but I'm not going to do it on the daily time frame as we are scalpers, we are not swing traders. So we are going to go on the hourly time frame. Now, this is the way it becomes interesting. You're like, oh no, now it looks like there's a downtrend. Yes, it does. But on the daily time frame, there is an uptrend. Usually when there is a downtrend on the short-term time frame, there is either a pullback or it could actually start changing direction. Since on the hourly it is showing a downtrend, there is 2 possibilities, like I mentioned. It's a pullback or it's going to become a bearish market. So right now we know it's support. Yes, there's a pullback, but we are going to be cautious. But we're going to be cautious with this trade. Let's remove this. Okay, so now we want to find 2 to 3 bounces. Let's find our support level first. Looking at the hourly time frame, where would you draw your support levels? Okay. If you said you would draw your support level over here, that's correct. Here, that's correct. Here, that's correct. Okay, let's just draw it. But do you see how it looks so messy? Even if you zoom out, oh look, there's another one here. And there's one, oh look, there's one here. It should become so clustered, right? You want to just have 2 lines of your support, 2 to 3 lines of your support levels. Otherwise, it's going to be very confusing to trade. Okay, so this is where I usually draw my rectangle. So there is current price. Okay, look, we can see little bounce, touch to touch. Oh, look, there's another touch here, another touch here. You can draw it like this whole area, but let's just do it like this just for now since we're on their daily time frame. And let's just move it just below our price level. So we could technically expand it just a bit. There we go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Touched 6 times. And that is our support level. Our second support level will be over here. I'm just going to draw a line just for now. If it does end up breaking, we can just fix it. Okay. So that is our support level for now. We can actually draw our resistance level. So let's say we bought over here. We could say our resistance level is over here. That is our recent resistance level. Or if you're feeling a bit braver, this is also the second resistance level, just over here. 1 touch, 2 touch, 3 touch, 4. And this is also a resistance level, but price isn't far enough for us to use that as our resistance level right now. As we are scalpers, we just want to go in and out. Okay. Hope that made sense. So we've identified our 2 to 3 bounces and we marked our zones. Okay, so now let's go on to the 15-minute time frames to see if we should adjust it. You can see, look, this whole area is our support, so we could adjust it a bit up here. There we go. Just to touch the wicks. And then we can use this as our second support level over here. Let's remove our resistance level for now, as it's going to be a bit confusing. And we're not. There we go. Okay. And we can draw our second support level just over here. There we go. And we have a third. To be honest, you could draw it so big if you want. Now, here is the catch. If market decides to drop all the way here and keep going further, you're not going to want to buy anymore because it doesn't make any sense for you to buy as it's broken your support structure. Therefore, you would probably want to sell as it has become bearish. And therefore, you want to follow the trend and sell. It doesn't make sense for you to buy and go opposite the trend. I hope that made sense. Okay, let's zoom in now. Since this, let's just put this. This is our resistance level. Since this has touched our support zone and we've had a green candle, which is showing buying pressure, and we had a second confirmation over here, we could have bought just over here, as it's probably gonna test this resistance level again, or we can wait for a third confirmation candle before we actually enter. And then let's say we entered over here, we're gonna have to get out over here, just before over here, and just take 10 to 20 points, as it could reverse and go against us as the market isn't looking that great. Or it could just go down, touch here, and then decide to go back up. Or like we mentioned, it could just keep falling, and therefore we have to swap our strategy and sell. So then we go to the 10 to 5 minute time frame for our confirmation. As we can see, it's going up. So I think I wasn't planning on trading, but since it's pre-market, we can just stop loss 20. Okay, look, we put our stop loss 20 and 10. It's going to be very slow since it's pre-market, but we bought. So over here, you can see my stop loss is over here and my target profit is over here. I don't know if I want to stay in this trade. It's going to be so slow. As I was mentioning, I just got on the 5 to 10 minute time frame, and that is it. Okay, let me go on and explain the PowerPoint, and then I can resume. But look, you can see it's going up. There we go. I'm just going to take profit because I don't really want to stay into the market because I'm not in the mood to trade right now. Okay guys, I'm just quickly take $40, but this was just an example. You guys, look, you see it's still going up, so I could have made more profits, but I just want to make this video as short as possible. But yeah, that was a real life trade I did, literally 40 seconds in and out, just by using support and resistance and having a good entry. Look, you see, I could have made more profits, but it's okay, as I wasn't really trying to trade pre-market, as it's very slow. And then, oh look, you see, keeps going up. You see, I could have made at least $100, but it's okay. It's just for demonstration purpose. Okay, let's go back onto the PowerPoint. Okay, we are nearly done, guys. So, what are the common mistakes beginners do? The reasons why I know these are common mistakes because I've done them before, and I want you guys to learn from my mistakes. Easier said than done. You're probably going to be like, oh yeah, I know all of this, and then you just end up doing it. And come back to me if you've done these mistakes. Okay, so one common mistake is drawing too many lines. The more lines you draw, the more confusing the trade's going to be, which is why I recommend just to have 2 to 3 lines. Of course, if the price starts going down, you can remove the previous ones and draw new ones. Very simple, okay? Number 2, using old levels. You should be using recent levels, recent support and resistance. I don't use your old, and never use old levels, as that would just mess things up. Number 3, entering without confirmation. You saw how I entered. I had confirmation by having a few green candles, and the price was going up. Therefore, it showed that buyers were in control and over sellers, which is why I bought in that moment. And then number 4, you never trade against the trend. I mentioned that earlier. Always trade with the trend and placing your stop loss too tight. All right, guys, that is the lesson done. I hope you guys learned a thing or two. Sorry that this lesson was a bit long, but I feel like support and resistance is something that you should never stop learning with. And yeah, if you enjoyed this video, smash that like button and subscribe for more. In episode 2 of support and resistance, I'll hopefully show you how to avoid fake breakouts and spot real breakouts, and this will save you from so many losses. So yeah, that's it, and ciao guys. Adios amigos. Okay guys, bye.